Welcome to Straight from the Gavel. I'm your host, Dave Barber. Each and every week at this time, we like to invite a member of the General Assembly in and discuss some of the things they've been working on and how it might impact all of us here in Rhode Island. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure to welcome a woman who's making her first trip to Straight from the Gavel. She represents the communities of Middletown and Portsmouth. We're certainly delighted to have with us this day the Honorable State Representative Linda Finn. Representative, it's good to see you.
Thanks for having me. It's always good to talk to you, Dave.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. And since you are relatively new to the General Assembly, we'd like to first give you an opportunity to give us some background information. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I used to be in the financial services industry for many years, for about 16 years up in Boston, working for different securities firms. And when I moved to Rhode Island and got married and started having children, I took some time off from my working and did a lot of nonprofit work around the Newport County area. And then I started a landscape design business. I decided that I wanted to do something different. So I took courses up at Radcliffe and started a landscape design business. So I've had that for about 12 years. And that gave me an opportunity to be home with my children when I needed to be and have a nice, just a nice small business. But in the last couple of years, I've just gotten more involved in the political climate in Rhode Island, just because I feel like we needed some good ideas and better people up in the State House, and was encouraged by some people that ran that kind of helped me make a decision to run as well. So
it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out.
and now let's talk about the first year. We're coming up, on your first year here inside the building and representing your constituency. What's the first year been like? Was it what you expected?
Well, I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest with you, but it's been great. I have to say I've been so impressed by the people that, particularly the group that came in with me, so I got a chance to know the 14 other reps that started when I did, and I'm just so impressed with the people that are working for their constituents, and I'm impressed with the people here in the State House that are available to help us, and it's been, and I've really enjoyed it. Actually,
we've had a great a relationship with a lot of the new folks this year, and all of you seem to have hit the ground running. You alluded to having a landscape business. Capital TV had the good fortune to see your home one day, and it's a great calling card for your business. Your landscaping is magnificent.
Oh, thank you.
But I would think that small business experience would also lend itself to dealing with some of our state's economic issues and trying to attract new business and create new jobs.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. I think when you're a small business owner, you have to go out and get your own business, and you have to listen to your customers and make sure that you're responding to them quickly. If you have somebody that's interested in doing a landscape design with me, I can't wait 2 weeks to get back to them. I have to respond quickly, and also you have to deliver. You have to make sure that you're doing what the customer wants and that they are getting what they're looking for. And I think that if you apply that to a broad spectrum of the state, that's what we need to be doing as a state, is listening to the people within the state and responding to them quickly and in a timely manner to help whatever their needs are. And
I hope people don't misinterpret this. I also think that women in politics have a little bit of an advantage too, because generally speaking, they're good listeners. And when you have to ascertain the needs of your client, you're certainly trying to ascertain the needs of the people that live in your district. And,
right.
and I think women have a great skill set when it comes to that area.
Well, I guess maybe we do. And, you can't interact with other people unless you listen to them. If all you do is talk about yourself or tell people about yourself, nobody cares about that.
Well, you know what I'd like you to tell me about, because it sounds pretty interesting and it sounds pretty high tech. Is expanding broadband here in the Ocean State. What are you doing with that? What would you like to see happen?
Well, I think that, as government officials, one of our jobs is to provide infrastructure for the state. And that, people think of infrastructure, they think of roads and, water and sewer and that kind of thing. But, some of the infrastructure of the future is going to be broadband, which is really just providing internet service to businesses, and the faster the speed, the better it's going to be, and the more bandwidth that you can get in internet, the better for businesses. And so I'm very interested in trying to expand that around the state. And I think we're such a small state that we should be able to almost become a gigabit state, which would mean like the highest speed we can possibly do. And in my district, there's a lot of people that move to Rhode Island because they really like the quality of life, but they're working out of their homes. So that broadband is so important to them and to the industry, like the defense industry and other industries as well.
Do you see it happening? Do you see us actually maybe one day offering internet service to everyone in the state, having that kind of wireless capability?
Well, we almost do right now anyway. We're one of the top states in the country. We were at one point the leader in having broadband coverage in the state. The issue now is to make sure everybody has what they call digital literacy, is to make sure that everybody has access to the computers and broadband and that they're able to use it. Because down the road, all of our services are going to be really on the computer, our healthcare and education, and everything is going to revolve around computers. So it's important for people within the state to have access and then also to be able to use it.
And possibly do business with Rhode Island companies and buy stuff via the internet. And if we can be really capable in that area, look at what's happened to Amazon, for example. Why can't we have some of our local versions of Amazon, if you will, where people could easily do business with Rhode Island companies?
Right, exactly. And I think it's very important, and it's something that we really need to be focused on going forward.
I know, you represent Middletown and Portsmouth. The defense industry is important to that particular part of our state. Is the General Assembly doing enough to try to promote and support and continue to grow our defense-related businesses here in Rhode Island?
I think so. I mean, I think that the defense industry puts $1.8 billion into our state economy, and it's such a huge part of our economy. And I think that people are aware of it and are in contact with them to help. And one of the encouraging things this year is that Rep. Gallison has formed a Defense Economy Planning Commission, which has really brought a lot of the players together to let people up in the State House know what their needs are and to listen to hear what it is that they need to help maintain the businesses here and keep the jobs here in Rhode Island.
Yeah, we had him on a few weeks ago, and he talked about it kind of at length, and they're serious. I mean, they know that it's important. Back in the Richard Nixon administration, we lost some jobs, some military jobs here in Rhode Island. And believe me, that commission, from the sound of it, they really have their eye on the prize. They want to grow that sector. Right,
and there's a new trade group that started, actually. Molly Donahue, she's a town council member in Portsmouth, she started, she's the executive director of this trade commission. And one of the issues that was really interesting to me is they're focusing on internet security and trying to, we're all trying to find things that Rhode Island is really good at and that we should focus on, and that internet security issue is just only going to get more important to, governments and individuals down the road. So that's one of the areas that they're focusing on, which I think is really exciting.
That's terrific. When we came down to your district, I'm speaking of Capital TV now, you made it very clear to us, and we got to meet some people that are very much a part of the agricultural business here in Rhode Island. And you said something to me one day when we were doing a piece on agriculture. You told me about this agritourism, and I'd never heard that term before, and it's kind of cool. Tell our viewers about it.
Well, agritourism is really a really good, simple example is just how Louis Escobar, who's a farmer in Portsmouth, he's a dairy farmer, and he raises corn for his cows, and and it's not really, he can have people come and look at the cows and come to his farm, but what he did was he started a corn maze. And so, he has this wonderful corn maze that he has every year, and he has a different design every year. This year he did a design of the 375th Portsmouth emblem that they made up, and it was really cool. And so he's bringing people that might not normally come to a farm onto a farm. Sweetberry Farm is another example. They, you can buy apples everywhere. And just a couple weekends ago, I went to Sweetberry to pick up some things, and the cars were all way out in the field for people to come and pick their own apples. People want to be able to do that kind of thing.
That place was amazing. I mean, yeah, it was a place where you could buy like cool stuff like apple pies, etc. But we met the ownership there. They occasionally bring in entertainment that's free. It's family friendly. Kids would like it. Seniors would like it. It's a marvelous place, and it's really, I think it's one of our state's best kept secrets because there's so much to see and do there.
Right. And even we went to Newport Vineyards, and they're just building a whole new tasting room and a tour so that people can come and see how wine is made. You can see the grapevines out in the field, and you can see the whole process. And people are interested in where their food comes from and where, they want to learn more about it. So. And
it's a heck of a lot cheaper than flying to Sonoma to visit a vineyard and to do a wine tasting. Because that place was incredible too, and the acreage that they had there. In fact, haven't you and your colleagues been working on legislation to be helpful to the family-owned farmer? Right. Tell us about that.
Right, because one of the big concerns in the farming industry is, not every farm family is going to be able to pass the farm down to future generations. And one of the things that happens is when the older, family members are either decide to retire or die, that the children get stuck with a huge tax bill, an estate tax bill, when the property gets transferred to them. So last year in the Assembly, we put together legislation so that the value of the farm will be based upon the agricultural value and not a value on the commercial value, so that it would help keep the farms within the family, so that it makes it more affordable for them to be able to hold on to the farms. Because we have a lot of, in Portsmouth and Middletown, there's just so many acres of farmland, and it's part of our character. So to lose that to development would be a shame.
Yeah,
so.
And not only that, but the ground is pristine, and if these folks can't afford to keep it, you put a shopping mall there or something, and that's not going to serve us well, because as you mentioned, there's just a finite amount of agricultural farmable land here in the nation's smallest state.
Right, exactly. And one of the things that Jan Eckhart, who he's the co-owner of Sweetberry, said is that, he's got a business, he's got about 20 full-time employees there, and he could have another business that sells widgets, and he's still contributing to the economy, and he's still, providing jobs, but having the business that he has, it also provides something that is a lot more than just the jobs. It's a part of our community, and it's keeping the rural nature of the state alive, which is exciting.
You know what? I could see somebody, it is when you getting back to this agritourism, I could see somebody coming from Connecticut or Massachusetts very easily just to see that place, making a day out of it, because it was that unique and that special. And this guy, the attention to detail in that place was completely mind-blowing.
His wife is a RISD graduate, so she's an artist and a potter. She does a lot of pottery, and so it was just, so between the two of them having a business background and a art background really makes a big difference in just how beautiful it is and how wonderful it's been, how well received it's been.
All right, you want a controversial topic now? We would certainly be derelict if we did not ask you, since you represent the Portsmouth area, about the tolls on the Sakonnet River Bridge. It's been hotly debated. A lot of people are up in arms about it. Give us your take. Where does it stand? Where are we going?
Well, I think that as a state and as a country, we're having a real tough time dealing with transportation funding and infrastructure funding. And we used to always get it from the gas tax, and that hasn't been raised on a federal level in almost 20 years. And in the state, it's hard for us to raise it because of neighboring Massachusetts and Connecticut that have lower rates than we do. So everyone's looking for more funding, and one of the ideas was to put a toll on the Sakonnet Bridge, which in theory is a good idea because it is going to help for transportation funding. But the thing that what I didn't see was really an economic development study that was really done on it, because one of the studies that was done did say that the traffic's going to decrease by 20% on that bridge, which is not a good thing, which means 20% less people are coming to the restaurants in Newport, 20% less people are coming to visit the stores and the shops downtown and eat in the restaurants in Portsmouth. And just for me, for my own business, I just hired somebody who happens to be from the Fall River area. That's an extra $7 a day that either she or I has to pay for her to come back and forth over the bridge based upon their proposal. So I don't think it was well thought out. I mean, I think we all as a state and a community have to pay for transportation funding, but I don't think that penalizing the Sakonnet area residents in Portsmouth and Tiverton in particular, it's an unfair burden to them. And people say, yeah, but it's only going to be a small amount. But even 83 cents a day, 83 cents each way for a resident, it adds up. But to me, it's more the concern of somebody from Massachusetts, if they're coming down to go to Flo's Clam Shack and have chowder and clam cakes, and they don't have a transponder, they're going to get a bill for $11.50 in the mail, and I just think that's ridiculous. It wasn't well thought out.
We've had a lot of people on this show that feel exactly the same way you do, but are we stuck with it? Is there anything we can do? And who says that there's a school of thought out there that says the rate isn't always going to stay this low, that
Right.
it might jump up some.
Right.
So what can you do about that?
Well, right now there's a toll commission that's been meeting with many of the legislators from our area, and really they're just trying to take a look at it and see. One of the things that's interesting to me is that they're expecting to take $23 million on revenue of the tolls, but it's going to cost us $3 million just to actually collect the tolls. And why should we even pay that $3 million to collect the tolls? And the bridge maintenance for the Sakonnet Bridge itself, because it's newly constructed and it's made of very much high quality materials and long lasting materials, they're only projecting it to cost $1 million a year just to maintain it. So why should we be charging that much just to maintain that bridge, which doesn't need nearly that much?
Well, didn't you also have a bill that was suggesting an alternative to this whole process? What was the bill about, and what happened to it?
Well, it was a bill to just to really identify transportation, to take fees that we pay for our cars and for registrations and targeted just going towards transportation funding, just to the DOT for their transportation. Right now, that money just goes into the general fund, and so it just seems to me that if we're charging taxes on vehicles, that should be directed directly to the transportation infrastructure, and that's not happening. So I have a toll story for you. This summer we were doing a project down in Newport, and it was really early in the morning. I had to show up down there like at 6 a.m. It was dark, and I inadvertently went through one of the booths and didn't pay the toll, and I didn't have a transponder. So when I came back at the end of the day, I told the very nice attendant at the booth that I had gone through the wrong line. And I said, "Can I pay you now?" And he said, "No." I said, "Well, no, I owe you the money." And he says, "No, we can't take it." So he says, "You'll get a bill in the mail." Well, I didn't get a bill just for the amount that the toll was. There's like a penalty. Right.
And I thought, my goodness, I made a mistake. I wanted to rectify the mistake the very same day, and it was just kind of an irritant. And if you're visiting from out of state, those kinds of things don't set well with folks, and we want people to come here
Right.
and enjoy this great
Right.
state.
Exactly. And the Preservation Society in Newport is one of the top 10 destinations in New England for people, and if we're cutting the traffic down 20% and they're losing revenue 20%, that's a huge amount. And like you said, with the penalty, adding insult to injury is not going to is not going to make people want to come back.
Yeah, they're not going to warm up to us right away. Now, you as a freshman representative, it's kind of unique because oftentimes new folks like yourself have a tough time getting any kind of significant legislation passed their first year out of the chute. That wasn't the case with you. You had an interesting bill that passed the very first time upon its introduction that protects domestic abuse victims and the way they are treated by insurance companies. Tell our viewing audience about that.
Sure. Well, before I do, I'm very much involved with the Women's Resource Center in Newport and Bristol counties for many years. I was on the board and I was a volunteer, so I'm very familiar with the domestic violence issues. And so when the opportunity came to sponsor this bill, it was a good one for me, a good fit. And basically what it does is it makes sure that insurance companies don't discriminate against victims of domestic violence, so that they can't deny them insurance if they look at their health records and notice that that there's been abuse. And the other important thing too that the bill does is that very often if it's a husband and wife that own a home and have the insurance, it may be that the husband might try to set the home on fire, and normally the insurance company would deny a claim because the husband was actually on the insurance policy, even though he may be estranged and may have moved out. So this bill would also protect victims from that happening too, so that they wouldn't be left with no homeowners insurance. So it's a really important bill, and I know the people in the Department of Business Regulation felt very strongly about it as well. So because they had an experience with it.
That had to make you feel pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was very good.
Not only was it something that you were intimately familiar with through your volunteerism, but the fact that your bill passed and you had the necessary support. But, as I hear you describe it, it just seems like the fundamentally right thing to do.
Right, exactly.
Did you get, when you were doing this volunteer work with some of these agencies, did you see a lot of examples of this? Were a lot of people telling you that they were having these kinds of issues?
Domestic violence is a terrible issue. It affects not only the usually it's women. It's not always women, but the women involved. But it affects the children involved, and it's a very, very difficult issue. And a lot of the issue revolves around control. And so very often a victim of domestic violence doesn't have access to very much money, or doesn't have much control over their lives. And so to take any more control away from them is just not a good thing to do. So
and it's something that carries with it tremendous emotional scarring. There's a lot of embarrassment. Sometimes people are frightened to come forward. Right. And if an insurance company was doing this to a person, now you're really adding insult to injury.
It's terrible, yeah.
I mean, the victim has enough problems just by virtue of being the victim to this kind of domestic abuse.
Right.
So that really would be rubbing salt literally into a wound.
Right. And there was another bill that was introduced. It wasn't mine, which I think was a good one through the Treasurer's Office, that is also in the Victims Fund, increase the amount of money that victims can get, victims of domestic violence. So, because very often they end up homeless, they end up having to move out and just to get away from their abuser. And so there was I think it's wonderful that we're trying to do things to help support them.
Well, congratulations on that legislation. I know that in addition to being a small business person, we mentioned that you're also a mom.
Yeah.
And you're a concerned citizen. And you've had some strong opinions about gun safety. I think we even talked about it the very first time we met.
So, yep.
And it's such an important issue. Were you a little disappointed that we didn't make more progress with gun safety this past House and Senate session?
Yeah, I really was, to be honest with you. I think that there was, out of the 9 bills that the Commission had come out with from the Governor's office, the Speaker's office, and the Senate President's office, there was 9 bills that I thought that they were good, strong bills, and I was very disappointed that most of them didn't even make it out of the committee. I grew up just 30 minutes from Newtown, and so right after being elected, we had that awful incident in Newtown, which we're coming up to the anniversary of just in a few weeks, and it really made me look at the laws that we have in place and what we could be doing to try to enhance our safety. And a lot of people don't realize that we don't have very strong laws, even though Rhode Island is considered one of the strongest states. And also, a lot of what's not being talked about too is just the type of weapons that they've become so much more powerful that most people don't really realize. I think just how how dangerous they are, and they're really weapons that were designed to be used in military conflicts, not to be used to protect yourself at your home.
Yeah, does a person need 80 bullets in their clip or 100 bullets to go deer hunting, let's say? I'm always very curious about that. You mentioned Newtown. I remember exactly where I was. I was on a beach on vacation. And I noticed everybody now suddenly looking at their cell phones, and the beach was buzzing with some big bulletin, some big news story. And I remember getting that story on my cell phone. And I said, well, this will be it. I mean, after this horrific thing, this will really shake people up enough that we'll see nationwide, widespread gun safety legislation enacted. Boy, was I wrong.
Right. I think that and in Rhode Island, we really should be getting it right. We have less than 15% gun ownership in the state, based upon a poll that was done last year. Polls that have shown that everybody believes we should have, the background checks and the, I thought we should consider having a gun registration system similar to what happens in Massachusetts, because it's just a way for our officials to know who has guns in the community. Right now, our local police chiefs, they don't know who has guns in their homes unless they hear it anecdotally, and it makes it tough for law enforcement to even be able to try to work on crimes, because the system of tracking where a gun came from is so difficult and can take weeks and weeks.
If my recollection serves me correctly, I think there was a national poll. It seemed to index at 93% of American people say we should have universal background checks.
Right.
This gun show loophole thing is too risky, it's too dangerous. How many children, how many citizens, how many people are going to have to die? Again, not taking away their right to bear arms, but how many people are going to have to die before something significant's going to happen?
Right. It's a huge issue, and there's the issue of murder and assaulting somebody with a gun, but there's also the issue of suicide and accidental shootings. I mean, we just have a tremendous amount of suicides with, particularly teenagers that are very vulnerable at a certain time in their life, and their brain chemistry just can make them react so, impulsively, that if there is access to a firearm, it's the number one choice for them to be able to to use that. But the studies show that if they try to commit suicide by other methods of maybe taking pills or an overdose, 95% of the time they'll recover and they'll never ever think of it again. It's just a very quick decision that gets made, and then a life is lost because somebody might think, well, that he's old enough to know better than to do anything with the gun. So there's a lot of safety issues as well that I think we need to focus on, and how people keep their guns, and keeping guns away from vulnerable citizens, whether it's their mental health issues, or whether their age, or it's just, we need to pull together to try to prevent these kinds of deaths, because they're preventable. That's the thing.
And how many times do we have to tell people the federal government is not going to come into your house and take every single gun that you have? We're not going to eliminate your right to bear arms. We just want to keep our neighborhoods and communities safer,
Right.
for goodness sakes. Now, in the minute or so we have remaining, what will be on the Linda Finn agenda for House Session 2014?
Well, I want to pursue. There was an issue, bill that came up which didn't pass, which be able to sell wine at farmers markets. I think that's an important agricultural issue that I'm hoping that we can work on, and I'm going to hopefully have other gun legislation that I'll probably introduce, and those are two that I'm just right now thinking of. But I'll just keep my ears open and have people give me suggestions.
Exactly. And again, you've been always so cooperative with us. I want to thank you on behalf of Capital TV for inviting us down to your district and showing it off. And it's a special place. It's a magnificent place. And you had a great first year. I wish you and your colleagues in the House of Representatives the very best in 2014.
Thank you so much, David. Appreciate it. It's
Listen,
been really fun.
It was absolutely delightful. And of course, we couldn't do it without you. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Dave Barber. And remember, you heard it straight from the Gavel.